All right, welcome back. This is M-Dog. We're going to take a look at this spot on bear. Coordinates here are 4450, 4451, something like that. I think 4450 is technically what most people would quote you in terms of the spot. This spot has been really good. I was trying to see. Yeah, it's just like a little farther to the left. Here, let's move everything over just a little bit. This spot has been good for 1 to 2 weeks now, but in the last 3 days, I'd say it has gotten. It's actually been the highest bite rate I've ever seen at bear. Now, I'm catching a lot of small stuff, like that grass carp we caught there is small, but there's big stuff mixed in. It's just been constant bites. But first, let's tie up some loose ends before we get into this spot. So hopefully you saw the last video on that really cool white bream spot at Volkov. There's a reason why these two rods are just going to be going off the whole time we're talking here. So that white bream spot at Volkov, if you didn't see that, it's the video I made before this one. This is a little common right here. And wouldn't you know it, as soon as I stopped recording, I got a weekly trophy white bream. So a lot of times I'm really fortunate on when I've got the recording going and when we catch the trophies, but not this time. It came as soon as we stopped, and I mean as soon as we stopped. And so we ended up with a 963 gram white bream. See, we're getting some small stuff. Let's go ahead and put the ground bait back on there. So this isn't all huge carp, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I mean, it's just the way the spot is right now, but it's also the bait we're using on these two, as well as the hook size, I think. Okay, so we caught, but just to finish up my thoughts on Volkov, we caught that trophy white bream, and then right after that we caught a blue bream. So I probably should have just made the video over and showed you those, but it is what it is. I will show you. Let's see. It was the largest white bream I had ever caught, so I can show it to you here. Redworm 10 Volkov. It's a nice white bream, and then we caught a 400-something gram blue bream right after that. The funny part is, the sort of normal 400 gram blue bream was worth more silver than the trophy white bream. But anyway, let's talk about bear. So we're at 4450. The first line I've got on is coconut and cream 22. And what I've kind of been doing on this first line, and this is our big line, I've been rotating boilies. Because what we're seeing in this spot is that the boilies, though the bite rate isn't great, they tend to be getting really big fish. Now, if you'll notice the hook size, this is unusual for me, and it's what other people have been having some success with here. I've gone down to a large 1 hook. Typically with carp, I've been settling in on 1/0 or 1/0 hooks. But in this location, the large 1 hook still seems to be catching the big ones, but it's also catching a lot of the sort of medium and small size ones as well. So it's, again, this is one of those bite rate spots at bear, which is just, for me especially, unusual. Some people have really good fortunate bear on bite rate, but for me, a lot of times it's so streaky, it's hard for me to stay here for long because I'm just not a patient person when it comes to these fishing spots. I want to find something that's going to be fairly active. Now, if you don't like catching grass carp, this spot is not for you. There are a lot of grass carp here. In some of the testing I did, you know, in a short amount of time, at least a third of the fish that I was catching were grass carp. But I was also catching black carp and plenty of common, occasional leather and mirrors as well. So let's look at the other two lines. I mentioned the boilies that were rotating. Well, these other two lines, just straight potatoes. Now, there is another option you can do, but let's talk about potatoes first. Potatoes, as you've seen already for bear, I mean, for this spot and compared to what bear normally does, the bite rate here on potatoes has just been phenomenal. Large 1 hooks, potatoes, loop rig. I'm using regular carp mix. People that are doing this day in and day out and making a lot of silver in this spot, they're using some special carp mix, that some special ground bait that if you want to find more about, I would suggest looking on the forums. I think people have posted there some of the different ground baits they've used to target carp. It looks like we might be getting a bite on our first rod here. I think the boilie we're using right now has caught several of the trophy grass carp this week. Let's see if that's true. Well, not on all regions. Let's check just a different couple regions here. I know several grass carp trophies have been caught on this boilie. I just don't know if it's the largest ones. Apparently not. Looks like potatoes and even cabbage leaf. That might be fun to try here. Okay, so here we got something on the boilie. And yeah, this one's going to be a little larger. Nothing record setting, but a little bit larger. Is it a grass? It is. I think we're going to get a lot of grass on this boilie. Just for fun, let's throw in some cabbage leaf while we're sitting here. While we're sitting here hanging out talking about this spot. But for me, this is, and the reason why I wanted to highlight this spot is simply because of the bite rate. I mean, you can catch this size fish and bigger at Bear almost any time you want. You just have to be patient. You got to wait for the RNG to hit, but you also, sometimes it's the weather, the time of day. Spots sort of rotate some. Well, at least right now, look, it's another grass carp. I told you there's a lot of grass here right now. At least right now, look what's on those potatoes. It is killing the line. At least right now, the bite rate just really stands out. So let me see if I can, what happens with this fish. We had the friction break on 20. It must be a grass carp because it's not that heavy or strong. Oh, it's just got some power behind it, right? You can tell it's not the weight of the fish, it's just a strong fish. So I'm going to say it's probably another grass carp. So the other bait that I have used a good bit in this spot, we already caught some on cabbage, by the way. That'll be fun to see what that is. The other bait that I've used a good bit in this spot has been cheese. Now cheese is really fun to use right here because you catch an even wider variety of fish. You still catch some of the carp species, but you also see right now a lot of barbels are coming in. So common barbels are being caught in this spot off cheese, and I've actually had a lot of success with the barbel. It's a really small grass carp. And so if you want to mix it up some, I do think putting cheese on. And someone caught a golden tench here a couple days ago. Shout out to Clubby. I think Clubby already made a video on this spot. But he caught a golden tench, and that was on cheese. So you could even put a feeder rod with a little bit smaller line, a smaller hook, and really try to target tench and still catch some of the barbel. I mean, that would be an option. I guess you run a little bit of a risk because of how much grass carp bites are happening, but you might avoid some of that, at least the bigger ones, if you did have the smaller hook and the rig that's sort of designed based on its line and everything to be targeting a little bit smaller fish. I think that would be an option. But when I first started fishing in this spot, I put potatoes on all three. And at least for me, the bite rate was almost too much. I've ended up wanting to put something different on the first line, or at least one line, whether that's cheese or something else, just because so many grass carp, so much activity. With 3 potatoes, it almost felt like too much. And for me to say that about Bear is very unusual. I usually, if I'm fishing at Bear, typically that means I'm also fishing on another account on my other computer because it's not that fast. The bites aren't that fast. It's kind of like sturgeon fishing or something. So this spot is in a really unique place for me, at least right now, and that's why I wanted to highlight it. And I would say as long as you have up to the sort of gold 80 alpha range, you're probably fine fishing in this spot. I mean, so much of what is coming out are more like small to mid-sized carp. And then you would just be in a fight once you did catch one of the larger ones. But people pull in big carp on alphas all the time, so that is doable. And I do think this regular carp ground bait is working fine. But again, if you're going to spend a lot of time here, it might be worth doing a little bit of research that I haven't done to see, okay, what specifically are people putting on their own designs of ground bait that maybe gets a little higher rate of trophies or whatnot. I mean, I can't imagine really having a higher bite rate, but maybe a higher rate of trophies. Yeah, so right now our net is dominated by grass carp. I fished here for a little bit longer yesterday and the day before that, and at least those days it seemed to balance out. It was still more grass carp than I'm used to, but it wasn't like 75% or anything. That's not a grass. Good. And obviously if you get grass carp trophies, that's going to be some pretty good silver, and it's always fun to get trophies. But compared to the common carp and some of the other species, grass carp aren't my favorite. Can be a lot of work and a lot of wear and tear on your gear according to what you're fishing with. And the silver rate on grass carp isn't always as good as you want it to be. So, and it's kind of fun because you still have the one rod. If you do it like I'm doing it, you still have the one rod where you're sort of rotating different boilies. But you're catching enough fish on potatoes that you don't mind being a little patient to see what's King Plum going to catch, which has been a popular one lately. What's white chocolate? What's an esterberry? You know, what's... So, you know, there's several boilies, and what I always do and suggest that people do is just look on the weeklies list. See what boilies seem to be really popular. It's usually a good place to start at least. The Coconut and Cream 22 is what we had started with today, and it's probably what I'll put back on there as I'm fishing here. But I think that's enough. Again, we're at 4450. If you need to see it on the map, it's right here, just sort of left of camp. And I don't know that I've mentioned this, but I like to clip at 22 in this spot. I really do. Some people are clipping 25. There's different ranges. I think I've got one of mine at 23 maybe. But I really like sort of a 22 clip. And you'll also see a lot of people using match rods, sandwich baits. You know, there's a lot of different techniques that are being used here. For me, loop rig has worked great. But that doesn't mean that other spots won't work well for you as well. So, as always, thanks for watching. I hope you will tune in again next time and let me know if you have any comments under the video. But tight lines, and hope to see you in game soon. Thanks so much.